The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are webcasting to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. This is the new home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, their headquarters. It's also the new home for Autism Live. We're thrilled to be coming to you on this Wednesday morning. I know many of you write to me and say that, like me, Wednesday is your favorite day of the week because of the lineup that we have here on the show. We start with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. She's here with us this morning and is going to be answering your questions live on the show. And then our second hour, Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Regrettably, Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson is not with us here today, and we continue to ask for and appreciate your prayers for her husband, Reed Jackson. He is still in the hospital, and so she is with him, but we have fabulous guests today for you. Sharon and Dylan Aragon. Dylan is a really remarkable young man on the autism spectrum. He is an actor and a singer. In fact, he is an actor who has been featured in some of the adult videos that help adults get skills that are done by CARD. He's done a lot of other things. He's going to be talking with us today about how he's finding college and some of the things that he's working on, and Sharon will give her insight as well as what it's like being a mom of a son who's out there performing and getting it done in college. I'm looking forward to that. But we want to remind you that everything we do here on the show, we really want it to be interactive with you. We enjoy having a conversation with you. Love it when you guys write to us, and there's many different ways that you can do that and many different ways you can watch the show. So Kelby's going to show you some of the varied ways that you can tune into our program and be a part of the conversation. I'm going to remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. Much to do when you go there. There's a new blog there this morning with, I promised you, a healthy GF-CF recipe for fall. It's there on the blog. Please sign up for our email list. You can get the monthly news guide and then the weekly viewer guide. All of that is free and we don't share your information. So please sign up for that. When you're on the homepage, though, you can be watching the live show or the most recently recorded live show, or you can click on the playlist that's up in the upper left-hand corner and you can watch the last 100 shows and scroll through them and fast forward and pause. It's a wonderful, wonderful feature. But to the side of all that is something we call the live feature. If you'll put your cursor in the box that says your question, all you have to do is type and hit enter. You do not have to log in. There is no password. There's no username. There's none of that. Kind of instant gratification, although we think there's about a 2-minute delay. So ask your questions early in the program or in the segment so that we can refer them to our varied experts that are on the show. But today we have the best expert on the show today. Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is here, and my friends, it is finally time for Ask Dr. Doreen.
Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. Welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is here with us on this wonderful Wednesday morning. Thank you for giving us your time.
It's
we always
a pleasure.
appreciate that. We like to remind everybody, because sometimes we have new viewers, in fact every day we have new viewers, that Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a true expert in the field of autism. She's been working in this field for 30 years. I always want to mutter that, but it's, I don't know why, because it's a wonderful thing to be proud of, how many years that you've been working in this field and making a true difference. She is, I believe, the preeminent expert in autism in our universe. I was going to say the world, but it goes further than that. And beyond being an expert, she is a visionary. She is somebody who is able to see where the trends are going, what's happening, what families will need. I always compliment you on your amazing perspective taking, because I think there are so many voices in the autism community, and I think you do a better job of hearing all of them and sorting through it and saying, you know, here's how we're going to move forward, and here's what's needed. So I appreciate you.
Thank you. I was just calculating. It's 37 years I've been
gosh.
in this field. 37 years. Good God.
No one would believe that. There's a painting
crazy.
Underneath her bed that's aging for her, like the picture of Doreen Gray. But
same initials.
That's true. Okay,
Pretty
it's spooky.
creepy.
Now you just freaked me out a little bit. But yes, because no one would believe that.
No, yeah, thank you. That's nice. I was recently just unpacking some boxes in my garage, and I came across photos of when I was at UCLA. It's just amazing. You go back and you think about the things we were doing back then with kids, and this is like the late 70s. And we have just come such a tremendous far way. It's unbelievable. It's just astonishing to see how much we've learned.
Well, I can't wait until somebody makes the movie of your life. And
funny.
I believe that that's coming. The first time I met you in person, my life had already been greatly affected by you, but the first time I met you in person, you invited me, you were unveiling skills.
Oh, okay.
And so that was the first time. And I remember sitting in this, amazing conference room, and you were talking and showing this thing. And I had this moment where I went, this is going to be, this what's happening right now is going to be depicted in a film at some point that will probably be on HBO. And I will be able to say, I was there. I was at that table. Yeah. It was so exciting.
Yeah, life has a lot to unfold. We'll have to see what comes.
I believe that that's coming. But in the meantime, we're here, and lots of people have needs. Lots of questions, and thrilled that you have an opportunity to answer them. But we always like to remind people that in this format, even though we have the semi-instant gratification of you guys sending them questions, there's no possibility that any expert of any caliber could give individual specific advice. So that won't be what Dr. Granpeesheh is doing, but I think what's so valuable is that you have an opportunity to ask a question. She has an opportunity to share with you her knowledge about autism, and then that helps you to have questions to take to the professionals that are able to see the individual in person.
Right.
So we thank you for that. And I know you guys, I don't share with you enough how people write in and say how amazing this is for them and how much they've learned.
That's wonderful.
I need to share that more with you. I need to be better
yes,
about that.
Yes, please do. I need the reinforcers.
But everyone does. And how much it means to people. So I want to dive right in here. I love the fact that you guys are finding all the different ways to write to us. First question came in on Facebook on the card site.
Yes.
And we appreciate that. You can write questions in other places. So somebody wants to know, hi, can I ask your advice on how can I get my autistic child to try new foods? She likes processed food, which isn't really good for her, so I want to opt for a better option. Any ideas?
Right. So I'm going to give you a very brief summary of how we do feeding programs, and it's one of those things that I hope is on our IBT site. There should be a module on feeding because it's a procedure, and it's a pretty straightforward and easy procedure. You just have to get certain elements right. So let's assume that one of your child's favorite foods is French fries. And instead one of the things you want your child to eat is, let's say, carrots. So you have your preferred foods and your non-preferred, but the non-preferred are the ones that you really want your child to start increasing.
So that's the carrots in this scenario.
Right, exactly. So, in this case, I think your child is on processed foods, so I would suggest that you first select a series of healthy foods that you want to teach your child to eat. And what you do is you essentially use the processed foods as reinforcers. So you will have a large amount of the reinforcer first, and a very, very small amount of the healthy food, because that's where you're at now. So right now your child's eating only French fries. So you'll have a whole plate of French fries, and you'll have perhaps one bite of a carrot. Now, keep in mind that in a lot of cases, feeding involves other things. It's not just preference. For instance, children will have a very hard time with the texture of the food, like they can't eat crunchy foods, they can't chew. There's a lot of other factors, and if those are involved, then it's a slower process. And instead of starting with carrots, you'd be starting with mushed tiny amount of carrots. So it really has to do with what the feeding issue is. There could be swallowing issues as well. But let's assume none of that exists. What you do is you give the child one bite of a carrot, and then they can have a plate of French fries. And then tomorrow you reduce the French fries by one, and you just, increase the carrot by a very, very small amount. So over the course of, let's say, 2 weeks, you are now giving the child, a whole carrot cut up, and their reward is just one French fry or something. And then you will be able to actually eliminate the reward and add, let's say, peas, and now the child will have a whole carrot and 1 or 2 peas and receive a French fry, that sort of thing. So you will now, so what you do, like anything else in ABA, you start with a large amount of reinforcer and a small demand, and then you gradually increase the demand and reduce the reinforcer to the point of normal life. So in normal life, we get to have our food reinforcers as long as we have some of our not so reinforcing foods, right? So generally speaking, you'll have, let's say, a protein and a vegetable and a carb, and the carb is usually the one that everybody loves.
Right.
But and with children, it's not uncommon that they'll do the ones they don't like first, so that they can have their favorite afterwards.
Right.
Or with our kids, we always say you have to eat your food before you get your dessert.
Right.
That's because certain foods are reinforcing. So you always want to make sure there's a fair balance, but you want to increase those things that the child doesn't want to eat, and just reduce the ones they like to eat that aren't good for them.
Yeah. I'm always struck by, because I'm always thinking, how would I mess this up? Quite frankly, that's the page I'm coming from. How would I mess this up? And I know what I do is that I move too fast.
Either you move too fast, or you're impatient, or
that too.
Or you just don't have time.
Yeah.
Or you convince yourself it doesn't matter. I mean, there's so many reasons that we don't do this with our kids, but it is a very easy procedure. A lot of times I say the reason ABA works is not because parents can't do it. Parents can absolutely learn to do all of ABA. It's mainly because we don't do it. We don't have time. We don't have the ability to be that sort of step-by-step and logical, and we get emotional about it and all these other things. One of the things that happens in feeding programs is that parents get very worried that their child won't eat, because the child will generally just reject. But if you are sure that there's a certain amount of the French fries, and they are dependent on having a bite, just a very small demand, you'll always be successful. If you do it slowly and do it methodically, you will be successful.
Yeah, I think the lie we tell ourselves is, this is going to take too much time.
Right.
And it takes a little bit of time, day after day after day after day, which adds up to your whole life is better.
Absolutely.
And if you were to take all the little slivers of time it takes much less time to do the intervention than it does to deal with what we're already dealing with. It's just one of those crazy mind things that we tell ourselves, the lie.
And plus we're tired. I mean, and parents are tired,
and overwhelmed.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember, even to this day now, my youngest is 14. But, as I'm going home, I'm like, oh, God, it's like 6 o'clock, and now I have to do 2 hours of French. And I'm like so tired.
Yes.
But we're just tired, and we try to avoid it. But truthfully, if you do it regularly, it's less, and it makes the rest of life easier.
I just 2 nights ago said, boy, I'm just loving going through 7th grade again. that was my little comment. Boy, it's even better than going through 5th grade math again.
Shannon, I'm going through it 3 times. You realize, it's so exhausting. It is.
Anyway, we're going to move on to the next question, which came to us via email. So we love it. You guys always have the option of emailing me directly, or some of you are emailing our autism-live@gmail, and that's where this one came in. My son is 3 years old and received a diagnosis of ASD and SPD at 2 years, 9 months of age. We are starting ABA therapy with a wonderful provider. We have been encouraged to stop other therapies for now so that there will be no confusion in techniques used with him. It makes complete sense to me, but our OT and ST feel strongly that he needs all of this. We can always add services back, but I know firsthand that OT and ST teach signs that ABA will not, etc. I want to get an opinion from a trusted source and found your website. If you would provide any information, I would be so grateful. And they left their personal information, which obviously we don't share with you at home. But thank you for doing that.
That's wonderful. So that's a pretty easy a question to answer, and it is a common question for parents. So yes, I would also recommend that at this point you stop the other interventions unless there can be full agreement on how the interventions proceed. And you gave a very good example. A speech therapist may go the path of teaching sign language, and in ABA, generally, we don't do that. Generally, we will go the path of teaching picture exchange communication system or some iconic system which isn't sign. And there's a lot of reasons for that. There's, sign is a recall process. You have to recall certain signs, and then even if you learn all of those, you're limited to other people who can read sign. With a picture exchange communication system, you will go to, from there to an OGG device to actually vocal speech, and it is recognizable by everyone, and it is a recognition system where the child can just recognize elements that are present. So it's easier to teach a PECS type system or a visual system. So having said that, people have different preferences, but if you were to try to teach a child sign and PECS at the same time, it would confuse them completely and they wouldn't learn either one. So you gave a very good example there. There's many other examples. For example, I might in an ABA program require a certain length of sentence once I've taught the child words and actions. I would want, let's say 3-word phrases minimum or 5-word phrases minimum because I'm expanding their language. And the speech pathologist may accept less, and that'll cause confusion, that'll cause a lot of delay. So, and occupational therapy really, in my mind, is not necessary for every child. It really just has to do with the child's needs. I also don't think speech is necessary for every child. I think you need to really establish what your child's needs are. If there's a very significant need for sensory integration / occupational therapy, it won't conflict necessarily. I have a lot of our kids doing OT, and it doesn't really conflict with what we do. I don't usually like to start programs with a speech and language pathologist and ABA at the same time. I do like to do ABA first. You should see, if you have a good provider, pretty rapid advancements and progress with your child in the first 6 months to a year. I'm not sure if you'll ever need to go back to speech. You might if the child doesn't develop vocal expression. Speech pathologists are much better than ABA people at producing sound. They have a lot of techniques that ABA people are not trained in, such as prompt technique, which helps the child initiate sound. So if that becomes an issue, you will need to go back to speech. Later on, with sort of some areas of pragmatic speech, you might need some help with speech. There's other aspects of things. If your child has apraxia, you will definitely benefit from speech before doing ABA. But if your child, if I were you, I would just start with an intensive ABA program and see how the first 6 months go and whether or not you need the other services. And having said that, I think that's all I wanted to say.
Can I throw a couple of 2 cents in?
Sure, please.
Just to give you another perspective, though, a lot of parents were saying for a long time, don't say no to the OT and the speech no matter what, because if you say no to it, then you've refused the services and it'll be really hard to get them back. Mm-hmm. But I want to add to that, because we've learned more since those days, that there is a way that you can say we don't have time in our schedule right now, and not sign off on your IEP saying that you've refused those services.
Right.
You can be very smart about it, because usually it's your school district that's offering
You're
the
assuming
OT
that.
and
Right.
the SP. Sometimes it's insurance.
Right. Well, now when about 5 or 6 years ago, it was always the school district. But now it's almost always the insurance.
Okay.
So things are changing in that parents are accessing these services through different funding sources, and that's the key. You're right. If it's an IEP, if there's an IEP involved in these services, you have to be very cautious and say why you want to delay the start of these services.
But you don't want to sign off. A lot of times parents were,
That's
this
right.
is the old thing, was the parents were given something and they signed off and they could never get it back.
Right.
If you're just smart about that, that doesn't have to be a thing.
Right.
But I think what's key as a parent that makes my heart beat a little bit faster is prioritizing. Because everybody who's advising you, they're going to be prioritizing their thing.
That's
and
true.
saying, well, you got to have the OT because it's important for this, that, and the other thing. And the speech and language pathologists are going to say, you got to have this because whatever. I just think it's important, especially early on, that you prioritize the ABA, and everything else is secondary.
Correct.
Everything.
Absolutely. And that's a little, I don't want to be arrogant about it, but truthfully, you should be following to the T an intensive early intervention program. Your child is very young. Congratulations for getting in that early. And I wouldn't worry about those other things right now. Think about this. You're talking about a program that has an intensity of about 40 hours a week versus other services that are about 1 to 3 hours a week.
Yeah.
So you can't go wrong here.
Right.
But the only area where you can go wrong is if you do less than 40 hours of ABA. If someone is telling you to do 20 or 25 hours right now, that's a mistake. Your child is 3. That is the age where you need an intensive program, and school isn't included in that, and other therapies are not included in that. We're talking pure ABA, 40 hours. That's your best chance.
Okay, great advice. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back with some of the questions that you guys have just sent in this morning, so stick with us.
It's every parent's desire for their child to have a great start in life. Yet there is a condition affecting more children's lives than pediatric cancer, diabetes, and AIDS combined. Autism strikes 1 in every 150 children.
Today, 1 in 110 kids in the U.S. will be diagnosed with autism. That is a huge jump from 30 years ago when it was 1 in 30,000.
Startling new report finds the number of children with autism is skyrocketing. The Centers for Disease Control estimates 1 in 68 children has a form of autism. Now that's a 30% increase in just 2 years.
Well, a lot of this with all the accomplishments over the last 20 years, I'm thrilled.
I think what kept me was the feeling that, I would have a parent come to my office late at night at UCLA and just fall apart. And this is a long time ago. There were much less back then in terms of services and knowledge and so on. And I would just sit with the family and the parents and walk them through and try to take away some of their fears, and at that point I realized, I think the thing that's actually most important to me is that process. I mean, thank God that I've been very, very lucky and blessed to have so many incredible clinicians join me along the way and just develop CARD in such an amazing, magnificent way. That I could, for me, it was more really about how can I help the families? What can I do for the moms, the dads? It is just, and I feel like, there's no way I would ever really know because I haven't had my own child go through this, but I've experienced it with people a lot of times.
Hi, this is Megan. I'm in 1st grade all by myself. My teachers are so fabulous. I like to read books. I like to go to my friends' birthday parties. I like to invite my friends to my birthday parties. I once had a sleepover with a friend. I like to have play dates with my friend. I'm the best reader in my class. I like to go to the library. I like to read different series of books. And here's how I learned to do all these things. By my card friends and Dr. Granpeesheh. Thank you, card friends and Dr. Granpeesheh.
Welcome back to Autism Live and to Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is here with us, and she's answering your questions live, and that's a wonderful thing, and we're grateful to her. Now, we had a question that came in this morning. It says, question for Dr. Granpeesheh. Can you please ask her to talk about ASD diagnosis for adult women? I have a 7-year-old with autism that has been receiving wonderful intervention from CARD for a few years now. I've been obsessing over his treatment and therapy since he was diagnosed. Spreadsheets, research, conferences, etc. I recently came across a chart for Asperger's in women, and I was just blown away that I could relate to most of it. Social anxiety, poor eye contact, sensory issues, missing social cues, mutism when upset, and have learned how to put on an act when I need to blend in. How can I pursue a potential diagnosis, and what help is available for adults? I'm almost 30 and live in Los Angeles. First, sending you a hug, right?
Absolutely, yeah, many hugs. And kudos to you for recognizing certain things in yourself. I can tell you that, you know, and I always go back to this, and it's sort of important to pay attention to this because we all see various things in ourselves, and if we were to take them to an extreme level, we would all be diagnosable in one way or another. The key to a diagnosis is that it causes the individual to be disabled in functioning in their family or at work, like in their society, basically. So, you know, I've always used this example that someone could drink 10 bottles of scotch every night, but as long as they go to work, have friends, have a healthy relationship with their family, then it's not diagnosable. You know, it's not considered a disability or disorder. A disorder, by definition, means something that prevents you from functioning well in your society. Now, so let's start with that. So you have already gotten to a point where you are functioning. You have a child, your child's in a program, you're doing very well, which, by the way, I'm glad your child is with us. But you're just seeing certain things that you would like to improve upon because you feel that you have social anxiety, which is never comfortable. And you feel like there are certain social situations where you don't feel comfortable, you feel fake, or like you're faking it. And that's perfectly fine, and you can work on those things. I'm not sure a diagnosis would benefit you in any way. There's just certain things you want to work on, and that's perfectly fine. Now, the best way that I would suggest you work on these things is that you can use your child's skills account to actually ask your supervisor at CARD to give you access to your child's skills account, and then go into the sections that have to do with executive functioning and cognition. Those two domains, those two areas will have a lot of ideas for you in terms of how you just read through them and see, you know, the advanced ones, and read through them and see if you have difficulty with any of those. And if you do have difficulty with any of those, then I would suggest that you actually practice those types of activities yourself. There are many books, a lot of really good books written by Tony Atwood on the subject of Asperger's and how you can use various things in your environment as tools to help you cope with the environment. Because you mentioned social anxiety, I think it would benefit you if you talked with a psychiatrist and considered an anti-anxiety medication. I think something like 80% of Americans are on anti-anxiety, which is the same as antidepressants, by the way. And you might find that to be very, very useful to you. There are many causes for anxiety in our lives, obviously, and just taking the edge off a little bit would perhaps help you get through life much easier And if you didn't have the social anxiety, a lot of these other things that you're experiencing might go away. So it is more about dealing with the anxiety. I often talk about how anxiety is part of autism. Like, I see so much anxiety with our higher functioning kids, and I think it's a big factor. So, you know, whether or not it's there because you also have Asperger's, or it's just anxiety leading to a lot of these feelings, you need to deal with the anxiety. And there's a multitude of ways to deal with anxiety. There's a whole section on anxiety in our where is it? It would probably be in our maybe social curriculum. I'm not sure. So you should really look at those areas and see if those help. But get in touch with us again if I haven't given you enough resources.
And I think, you know, there's an expression in the autism community that we say puppies don't have kittens. And it's a way a lot of autism parents relate greatly to certain aspects of where their children are on the spectrum. And I always say we're much closer to our children than maybe all of us are willing to admit or accept. And, you know, my husband and I have conversations where we will say to each other, oh, well, that's where you're on that spectrum. And then he'll say to me, and that's where you are, right? And we mean that lovingly. But it's just very interesting to notice, because it is a big spectrum of different considerations, and everybody has something. Right? It just doesn't add up to you being not able to function, and having that disability. But I applaud you for looking at this and recognizing that there are things to work on. And I can tell you, when I first sat and read through skills, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good for me. There's so much that I learned, and I'm still working on, having done skills. And as somebody who used to teach 7th grade, I said every single junior high school student should have to go through the executive functions curriculum. Every single, I'm not talking about kids on the spectrum, every single human being would be more productive if they had that as part of 7th grade curriculum standards.
Honestly, I know, I agree. It's just, there are so many really good techniques. It's just techniques for learning and for self-improvement and self-awareness. And I mean, this is someone who's already very aware.
Yes.
And you'll get a lot of tools there.
Absolutely. So yes, write to us if you want more information, but what an inspiring question.
And excuse me, one other thing is, Shannon, I think in the past we've posted numerous shows we've done on anxiety, and I think you would maybe enjoy looking at those as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. I want to take something from Twitter now.
Sure.
Somebody wrote in and said, how do I stop my 12-year-old son with ASD from throwing and breaking things, not in anger, just to watch it fly?
Right. So, and that's a very, that is a common thing, and I really commend you as a parent for having noticed that your child enjoys the observation of things flying, which is kind of interesting. Often we think, it takes parents a long time to figure out that they just really like how it looks. So it's a hard thing to control, but the way to control it is that you need to replace or have certain periods of time where he's allowed to engage in that activity or some form of that activity, and that would then kind of be his release period, and the rest of the time he's not allowed to. So the way that a behavior analyst would do this is they would essentially take a measure of how often does he do it during the course of the day, because the idea would be to reduce it, to limit it to certain times. So let's say he does it all day long, and then what we would do is limit it to from this time to this time only, or from, you know, that's kind of the concept. And during that time, initially you would allow him to throw objects in a safe environment, safe objects. So not like, you know, you would make sure that he's in an environment where perhaps he could throw things like pillows, stuffed animals, tissue boxes, things that are not likely to break anything, and also you'd want him in a room where there's no glass, you know, those types of things. And that will, so that when during the times when he's not allowed to, if he needs to do it, initially he would ask for a break. He would ask to go to his throw room or whatever you want to call it. And then over time what you do is you allow him to go to his throw room, not every time he asks, but on a particular schedule. Initially, he'll be asking and going, but then later what you'll do is you'll say, okay, we're going to go in 10 minutes, and you'll set a timer, and then he'll go in 10 minutes, and then what you do is you have a break every hour, let's say, or every 2 hours where he's allowed to go for 5 minutes. And then eventually what you'll end up doing is saying, okay, you can only do it from like 6 to 7 p.m. at night and 8 to 9 a.m. in the morning, or whatever it is that you decide. And at the same time, so this is how you kind of get rid of it in his daily life. It's a process, and that's why it's better to have a behavior analyst help you with this shaping process. But the other aspect of this that will happen over time is you'll try to find normal life things that he can use to throw. For instance, put him in basketball. Teach him how to throw a ball into a hoop, because that's something he will enjoy doing, and it's very functional and normal. Find things where it is appropriate for him to engage in this activity, and it's not a big deal. Like, even if he's like in swimming, he could certainly like throw a ball around in a pool, or if he's on the playground, you can use this as throwing a ball to other kids and so on. So, you can use some real life situations. Even video games these days, there's a lot of video games that will allow you to see that kind of projectile of throwing an item. In fact, what is it? Angry Birds, for instance, is a game that has to do with throwing. So find things that are sort of more normal, adaptive, and that he would be allowed to do those, and then restrict him in other environments.
Wonderful. And you have used this technique on many children. There is an amazing drummer who had a stim, and you morphed that into, he's a world-class drummer, was playing at the Hard Rock Cafe this last Sunday.
Crazy.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Okay, we're inundated with questions, so I'm just going to forge on, and you tell me when you're faint.
Sure, no, go right ahead. I feel better.
Okay, so I'm going to take something from Facebook first. We had somebody write in and say, what's the best way to talk to my daughter about her menses? We don't have an age.
Right. I mean, this is a very hard question for me to answer, because I don't know the functioning level of the child or the age, assuming the age is somewhere between, let's say, 12 and 14.
Right.
Or maybe younger, and you want to tell the child what's about to come. I would have to assume that the child has some level of comprehension, but it's still very difficult for me to answer this, because depending on the level of understanding, there are a variety of different things. I mean, if you have limited understanding, then there is no need to explain what menses is, like any other child, where you basically would just explain, this is going to happen, this is okay, and this is how you deal with it. So there's 3 aspects to it, which is what is actually going to happen. The fact that you're not bleeding and dying, it's a normal cleansing process. And the third is how you have to take care of yourself during that period of time. Those would be the 3 elements that are very important to explain, and not necessarily, what is actually happening in your ovarian tubes and so on and so forth. You don't
Nobody
have to
ever
get into
explained that to me. I mean, I had to get that much later, So.
That's how I explained it to my kids. This is the egg.
Right.
But you don't have to go into that, obviously, and you just have to kind of say, oh, this is great. In fact, in our culture in Iran, it's a celebratory thing, because you have now become a woman type thing. So it is something, and I think it's good, because it's a fear-evoking experience the first time, and I think that it makes it much less fear-evoking and much more like a positive experience, which I think is important.
I grew up in an era when half of my friends called it the curse and the other half called it their friend. That's so confusing. Which is it, the curse or your friend? The curse is visiting. My friend is visiting. You never, it's all perspective, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, I interrupted you. Sorry.
No, I was just saying that I think it's very important for girls to not feel afraid. And the other aspect is with some of our children, I mean, I remember very, very early on in the old days when I was training a school district in Chicago, I think, or somewhere around there. And they had a classroom, and this is so long ago, we're talking like early 80s maybe. And they had a classroom of teenage girls, and they were all starting their menses, and it was and these were all pretty severely disabled children with autism. And I was trying to teach the school how to prevent, the children doing inappropriate, like getting blood and rubbing it on the walls, sort of a different version of feces smearing type thing. And that's something you got to be cautious about, depending on the functioning level of the child, is that it is an interesting, curious experience. And you want to make sure that the child doesn't get too much into sensory stimulation of this. So something you want to be aware of.
Yeah, very concerning. Okay. Yeah. And our other question that came in on Facebook from Puerto Rican Mommy wants to know, will it ever get easier?
Oh, it does get easier. It gets a lot easier. And I'm so sorry that you're going through a tough time. I guess the only way to think about it is we never really get anything we can't handle. Most of the time, the universe, God, knows how much we can take, and we have to go through these stages as we become more enlightened and wiser in life, obviously. And some can take more than others, which is why you have that blessing, I want to say, of difficulty or of a hard time. Because you are strong and because you can take it. One of the things I tell my staff, Shannon, every training I just did yesterday for supervisors here is, they're all very young folks coming in with master's degrees and BCBAs, and many of them don't have children yet. And I tell them, I take them through what it might feel like to have a child and then the child to be diagnosed. And I tell them that they have to be respectful and honor the parents, because they could never, so few people have the ability and the strength to go through what autism actually is. And to be an autism parent is a distinction that no one else can actually understand. And the truth is, it's an incredible, difficult time, but you have to just know that you're strong enough to handle it. Know that you can do it. There is no failure. You just do the best that you can, and you get as much help as you can. And don't give up. Sometimes, especially when you're out international countries, I hear stories where moms are just left on their own, and dealing with everything. Just try to reach out, pray, the help will come. And if there's anything we can do for you, just let us know.
Right. We get through this together.
Yeah.
I know you feel sometimes alone. I certainly felt that in the early days, but
it does get easier,
it's an amazing
though.
journey.
It is an amazing journey, and it's kind of like God's way of making parents really, really appreciate every single step of the journey. It's like how many times around this time of the year actually is when I start getting a lot of emails and letters from parents just saying, this was the first time he enjoyed Christmas with us, or this was the first time he said, I love you, or what, and it's a pretty significant step. And it's the first time your child says words, the first time they look at you, the first time they hug you, the first time. We don't remember that as parents of typical children. We don't remember when that happened. And with parents of children on the spectrum, it's a step-by-step journey where every accomplishment is enjoyed and highlighted. So yes, it gets easier, and yes, your child will learn. And even if you do nothing at all, there might be tough phases, but children generally start to improve when they go past the teen years, just because their hormones change and various things happen. So don't worry, just do the very best you can. And honestly, if I was a parent and I had almost no resources, the one thing I would do is I would get on the Institute for Behavioral Training site, the IBT site, and I would learn all these techniques myself so that I could be empowered to make some change with my child myself. All you really need, this is why I made all the training modules. This is why I had the dream of having skills. Why those two programs together, you can do anything. A parent can do anything. You can go through all the training. We give our BCBAs, all of it, at very little cost. For I think less than $1,000, you can go through everything on that site.
And it would take you a long time to go through it.
It would take you a very long time because there's hundreds of modules of training. But let me tell you, you will be very well trained. And then after that, you just have to use skills. Skills will guide you through every single thing. You could potentially, the resources are there. The energy, I don't know, but the resources are there for you to do a full program with your child. So, you know, you can just go to those sites, and they're very cheap. They're not that expensive. So oftentimes I feel when we feel afraid, we freeze and we don't do anything. One good way of getting over that is just to do something. And the thing to do for you right now is to learn.
Wonderful. We've got tons of things coming in, so I'm going to continue on with a question. Somebody said thank you.
Sure.
By the way, my teenage son is nonverbal. He used to use his Nova Chat fairly well, but it went missing, so he went back to his PECS board. I can't get him to communicate anything in capital letters with it. School says he uses it sometimes, but I don't get any communication with it, and self-injury and teeth grinding has increased. I know we need to find one form of communication for him. Do we find another device? I was thinking of using an iPad or continue with the PECS. I'm frustrated, and so is my son, and thank you very much.
I would really seriously suggest that you use an aug device. If he was already at an augmentative device like Novacek, then I would try to go back to that. PECS is usually it's a limited form of an aug device, and we use PECS in the process of going to the use of an aug device. So we will use PECS as our primary visual initial introduction to a visual program for the child, but then ultimately our goal is always to go to either an iPad or an augmentative device. Now, there's differences. Children do different things with different ones. Aug devices have many more capabilities than you can have on, let's say, Proloquo on iPad. But they're more expensive, and your child has to have it with them all the time. The benefit of an iPad is you can go all the way down to an iPhone, you know, or an iPod, and then they're communicative.
Right.
However, the benefit of an aug device, there's many. They can express themselves in many other ways. They can. It's kind of easier to work with those. Another thing that you should consider is with an iPad, it's easier for you to program or use Proloquo. With aug devices, you need someone to help you program it. It's not an easy thing. Those are the pros and cons, but definitely I wouldn't restrict the child to a PECS device. I would definitely move forward. And this is one of the most important things. And if you can't afford the aug device, Act Today does fund these, and it is one of the things that you can certainly apply to our funding, Autism Care and Treatment Today, and we would try to be able to help you with that funding. It is also something your school district is responsible for funding, so I would go there as well.
And a lot of insurance is now paying for iPads as well for nonverbal children. The Act Today grants, the next phase that is open is January 1st, unless you apply for an SOS grant, which you can do at any time. And again, that's act-today.org for anyone who's watching. I just want to say somebody wrote in Facebook and says it was very nice seeing you last month at a new office and that you got to meet their little one. I'll tell you the name when we're not on, and their supervisor. But they would love to get in touch with you via email and want to know how to do that. I want to encourage you, just send the email to me and I will make sure that it gets forwarded to Dr. Granpeesheh, s.penrod@autism-live.com. All right, I want to give you one short break because we haven't been taking any breaks. Short break, and then we're going to be back answering some more questions, so stick with us. Currently in the United States, 1 in 88 children is affected by autism. 1 in 88 means something different when your child is the one. Recovery is possible. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live, an online show about autism broadcast by CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm also the mother of a child with autism, my beautiful son, Jem. You know our old joke, guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt. So we're gonna take the chickens. But things weren't always so easy. I remember when Jem was first diagnosed with autism. I used to lay awake at night in bed and pray for someone or something that could help us to get our child back. My prayers were answered by Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD treats autism and other related disorders using the principles of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Surgeon General. About a year after we started treatment with CARD, we were able to see tremendous improvement, and we got our child back.
What grade are you in?
Second.
You are a smart cookie, huh? Do you like school?
Yeah.
Do you have any good friends?
Yeah, Oscar.
Oscar is your best friend?
Yeah.
And my child is just one of thousands to benefit from CARD ABA therapy. Across the nation and around the world, children are making amazing progress and being given the keys to unlock their full potential.
Recovery from autism is absolutely a possibility. We've been recovering children for over 20 years. It's just a matter of identifying the child's medical needs, understanding the child's sensory issues, and then teaching the child all of the skills they need in order to function normally.
We know there's hope for autism. Autism is treatable and recovery from autism is possible. Welcome back to Autism Live and to Ask Dr. Doreen. We are putting Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh through her paces, hitting her with as many questions as we possibly can in 1 hour, written from you guys. So I want to move on in this last 10 minutes, a rapid fire, get as many as we can.
Sure.
So written on our live site, do you have any resources for teaching teens on the spectrum how to cross the street? We are using discriminative training, but our student is still struggling to know when to cross.
Yeah, we do. But I'm not sure exactly where it is. I know this video, but we have video, and it's either in our adult website, under one of the videos for safety, or it's in skills under the safety protocol, which would be in adaptive skills.
Okay, so check that out. You can do a 14-day free trial of skills to look and see, and then you'll have access to the whole lesson. It is one of those 14-day free trials where you give them your credit card number and you have to cancel it before the 15th day, or you will be charged for the next month. So and then you can check out the CARD adult site, and that there's a tab on, if you go to centerforautism.com and just click on the CARD adults. We're going to be talking about that in the next hour, because we have one of the actors who was on the CARD adult video, training videos, that's going to be joining us in just a few minutes. So that will be really fun. Okay, next question. This question is for Dr. Doreen. My 5.5-year-old son with autism has tons of language and can talk in 4, 5, and 6-word sentences, but his social skills are really delayed by 2.5 years. I called a few places for ABA services, but they tell me that they can't provide social skills services if there are no other small kids in the house for my son to practice the skills with. I have 2 other kids, but they say they're too old. They're 14 and 12 years old. I'm really desperate because I don't want my son to be 6 and still not to be able to be social with other kids or have friends. I know he can learn this. He just needs to be tough. Can social skills...
he just needs to be taught.
Taught. Oh, thank you. I wasn't...
Sure.
Can social skills be taught by a therapist with other peers?
Without
other peers. Thank goodness you're here to read with me. Please help me. I'm desperate. We're in New Jersey, and thanks so much for everything you do for our kids.
Yeah.
Great question.
Yeah, very good question. And absolutely, yes, 100%. In fact, having other kids is only the very last portion, which is used to make sure that the skills that they learned are generalized. But there's a ton of stuff you do prior to having other kids, and yes, you can absolutely teach social skills before you go to other children. So here's 2 things I would highly recommend. One is, again, I would have to make sure that you know some techniques. So just basic techniques which you would learn. The section on the IBT website, which is Institute for Behavioral Training, which is called Teaching Skills. And so you would want to go to the parents section and go to Teaching Skills section, and you'd learn some basic techniques. Then you want to go on Skills, which, as Shannon said, you can even do that in the first 2 weeks for free. And when you go to Skills, you will want to go to the social curriculum, and then you'll have 1,000 ideas. I mean, there's like so many different things, particularly also if you go to the play curriculum, there's a whole section on peer play. So you'll get this, I'm giving you too many resources. Like you'll have easily maybe 40 lessons that will apply to this particular thing, and they're under the 2 areas of play and social. The other thing I want to suggest is, and I don't know if it's out, I think you can get it online. We're all, a lot of our offices are in the process of doing this training now, but UCLA developed a program called Peer Play. It's called Peers, P-E-R-S, and it's a social skills program, which I find to be very good, and so we're starting to use it at CARD. So if you can find that online, or if you can get that as a copy from UCLA, it's been published, so it should be out there, Peers. Then you can learn the techniques there, and you can certainly start practicing those. But again, with social skills, we give our kids the tools first. We teach them how to, let's say, pay attention to other kids, how to take turns, how to interact verbally with other kids, how to share, how to give and take, how to pay attention to when they're losing interest. There's like a million things. And then we practice various games and so on with other children. But the tasks certainly can be taught to the child, and you can practice them with the siblings, because it will help generalize. The more people you practice these things with, once the child has learned, then it will generalize easier to younger kids.
Wonderful. And it just occurred to me when you were talking about peers, because you mentioned that you're in New Jersey, and Kelby, you have to help me because I'm having a senior moment. But one of the favorite new guests that we've had on the show that I just adore, we just interviewed him in Texas. He's the author of the book Overcoming Anxiety in Children and Teens. Jed Baker, Dr. Jed Baker,
yes,
teaches social skills in New Jersey and has like 9 locations. Google Dr. Jed Baker in New Jersey and take a look, because he's
terrific.
Just loving him. So you're there. You're in New Jersey. You're yay.
That'll be a very good resource.
Okay, I want to move on to another question that's written specifically by a friend of the show that we just adore. So I'm not going to say her name, but she knows who she is. The other day, she was talking with her son, and he said, "Shut up."
Yeah.
Naturally, she says, I was upset and told him that was not okay and sent him to his room. When I came into his room and talked to him about it, he said that his brain was cursing and he was telling his brain to shut up. This isn't the first time he says his brain is telling him things or making him do things, bad behaviors. Or he will say things like his brain is controlling him when he's doing bad behaviors. Is this something I should be concerned with? Should I be concerned with schizophrenia, or is it a way of not being blamed for things?
I don't think it's either one, and schizophrenia has a different twist to it. It's a little bit different. Schizophrenia, there's a lot more absence of the person being there. I don't think this is schizophrenia personally, and I can't tell you that for sure because I haven't seen him, but this does not sound to me like schizophrenia, and I did a lot of work with schizophrenia. What I want to say is, I think he's just expressing himself in a different way. Obviously he is to some extent blaming the voices, but if you really think about it, we all experience exactly what he's describing here. We all have voices in our heads. The voice of you telling yourself to wake up or go for a run or eat or not eat, that's all voices in your head. And sometimes our kids get confused and sort of blame those voices, and it's just like me saying, like anyone saying, oh yeah, I had chocolate at midnight because the voice in my head said I have to do it, you know? And it's more like the other voice I didn't listen to said don't do it, you know? Right. So it's dialogue in your head, and I wouldn't worry about schizophrenia at this point, but what I would do is we have a program I think it's in our cognition curriculum that's called Think versus Say. And this would help you with this because it teaches our kids to differentiate what they say versus what they think. Because, see, our kids a lot of times with theory of mind deficit don't understand that what's in their head is private and they can keep it there. They think it's the same thing. If they hear it in their head or say it, you know it. And so if he understands that things that are in his mind are kept private and they're okay to be there as long as they don't come out of his mouth, then that'll help him control those things.
And I gotta say, I got a grin on my face because I think this is a good sign.
Yeah.
He's starting to think about thinking. He just
Absolutely.
doesn't know yet that's what he's doing.
Absolutely.
And that's
Good point.
that's
Good
a
point.
really step progress.
Absolutely. Good point. Yes.
So be excited
quite
instead
aware.
of afraid.
Right.
That's a really cool thing.
Yeah.
I can't believe it, but we're out of time, and I am devastated because
We'll
we have
do
4
our
or 5
best
more
next
pages.
week.
We're not here
We're
next
not
week.
here next week. The
But we'll be
following
here the week after, so that'll be December 3rd, and you guys, December 2nd.
So
So
we
you guys can
should-
be writing questions in.
So then we should wish our audience a very good Thanksgiving. We won't see you until after Thanksgiving.
Well, I will be here, but we won't be here with you because we have a show on Tuesday. So yes, a happy
Thank you.
Thanksgiving and a safe and grateful Thanksgiving, right?
That's right.
All right, we're going to say goodbye to Dr. Granpeesheh. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to be back for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. And our very special guests today, Sharon and Dylan Aragon, are here with us. You're going to love having an opportunity to chat with them. We're going to go now to the A word. We're back to the beginning of this series when Jack Riley was just starting therapy. Take a look where it all began. Here is the A word.
Wow. Sand. Does that feel funny in your hands? Do you want to go swing? Jack Riley. Jack. Good looking. Thank you.
I accept that he has sensory issues. I completely accept that he has speech delays. All of the symptoms and the things that lead up to the word autism, I have no problem accepting that. I have no problem addressing that and being aggressive about it and making those things happen. It's the word itself that I have a hard time with, mostly because of my perception, and I imagine the perception of a lot of people that autism is Rain Man.
I don't have my maple syrup either. I'm going to be without my maple syrup and my toothpicks.
It's all these images that you see, you know, even when they put a child on TV, it's a child who's so severe and doesn't hug his parents, and because our son does that, it's just hard for me to make that leap. And then logically, I get it. It's a big spectrum, and it's just a personal thing that's hard for me to say the word because you don't want to admit anything.
It makes it real to say the word.
We knew it even before to a certain extent. You know, he would line up cars and
I'd walk on the knuckles of his toes a lot.
I mean, I remember even having conversations saying like, I'm sure he walks on the knuckles of his toes. I'm sure he lines up his toys.
Yeah, the more times you say, oh sure, then you find eventually you've got to
He spins.
draw a circle around those and say, okay, what does that add up to?
So we always noticed that.
He didn't point.
He never pointed, although we didn't realize that until we went through this process. If our pediatrician had asked us, you know, 8-9 months ago, does your son point? We would have known a lot right then. We decided last fall to get Jack Riley tested for speech delay. We noticed that he wasn't saying a lot. He didn't say mommy, he didn't say daddy. He was a little different when we would take him out in public. So we contacted the regional center to get him evaluated for speech delay, in my mind. And that was the worst I thought it would be. So when they told us autism, I think that word was far worse than we ever expected.
Yeah, I remember I kicked the garbage can when we were outside. My foot hurt. I remember that. And that wasn't a very good day.
How were they with letting you know that was the diagnosis?
I guess in my recollection, and this is me projecting quite a bit, but they pitied us.
Yeah, it was uncomfortable. And they're talking sort of like I was 12 years old or something like that. Who knows how to deal with that kind of stuff? I mean, even if you're a professional and that's what you do all the time, I don't know. You don't know the people you're telling very well.
There was a lot of the head shaking, and you know, he's still the same beautiful child that you came here with, but yet they're sitting there like they've just given us a death sentence.
Yeah, it was almost like they just told us he had cancer or something.
So I don't know if I'm reading that in, or I don't think that I like them that much. I still don't think I do.
And we didn't love that process either. They brought him in there and gave him 45 new toys and said he's more interested in the toys than he is in us.
We thought
that he never met.
We thought what kid wouldn't be, but.
But then in retrospect, in the hour and a half, 2 hours that he was there, he never once showed us one of the toys. He didn't come to us to engage us in any of it. And actually they did us a favor because we would have fought it. I mean, just in our heads, we would have fought the autism diagnosis. We wouldn't have. Had they told us that he's fine, we would have left and got him speech therapy, and that would have been it.
Probably it, yeah.
We're pretty numb about all of this. I mean, we found out November 2nd. It's 4 months. It's also kind of a mourning period, so I think we went very numb for a while.
Yeah.
But we're coming out of that now too, where we're starting to, click that there are things that we can do. I mean, I think for the unfortunate part for a while was that we were both thinking, come and help us, everybody, please.
Mm-hmm.
We have this thing that we don't know how to deal with it, and time's a ticking, come and help us, tell us, and now we're just kind of do it ourselves, and we're the ones who know him best, and we can take all this information that people tell us, and then we can adapt it to what we know will work for him, and he's already responding. It's slow, but
I personally forgot for a while to enjoy him. I just took care of him all day, and I wasn't having fun. Now I'm back to just how cute he is and how incredible that little thing he just did is, and that smile and the joy he gets out of one simple little thing. And but for a while there, I forgot to do that. I just was getting through the day. Maybe you didn't want to notice. Maybe I didn't want to notice things because a lot of them point to the A word, autism again. There's no one to talk to about it, because even when you bring up the idea that's possible, your family members, no, he's fine. They want to help you say no and deny it. He seems fine. He's just, my son didn't talk till he was 3 and a half.
yeah, a lot of people, that was part of why we didn't even have him evaluated until we did, because a lot of people would tell us that.
Yeah, everyone tells me their son didn't speak till he was 3 and a half and wasn't potty trained till he was 4, and so, my kid's normal. Well, it's easy to deny, but we're not denying anymore.
I ordered a pair of earrings, and they were puzzle pieces, because my son liked puzzles, and I thought, this is in honor of my son, I'll wear these earrings. They had the right colors, and I thought, this is great. And we were probably two days away from going to this diagnosis, and I'd done enough research to know what they might say. And it occurred to me that puzzle pieces were symbolic of autism. And I was like, I have to send them back. I'm like, oh, this is terrible. I can't believe I've ordered autism earrings.
Yeah.
And didn't wear them for months. They sat there, I looked at them every day, and I thought, I'm going to put these earrings in today and accept it and move forward. And couldn't do it. Thought I can't wear them to OT because they'll think I'm just wearing autism earrings to, make a statement. And I finally started wearing them probably, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
So I guess that means I'm getting used to the idea.
I see it in adults now. I'm very conscious of it. Maybe it helps to just think everybody has it a little bit. We were getting Jack a haircut a few weeks ago. We still say the A word instead of autism. I'll say A word, it's your A word. And
that was for real, though.
That was real. This 15-year-old kid walks in, and Toy Story 3 is on, and there's little kids getting their hair cut, sitting on chairs and animals and whatever. And he starts talking out loud to whoever would listen, saying how much money Toy Story 3 had made, and it's the largest grossing in history, and blah, 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 and blah, 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 blah. And then he goes, okay, I'll see you guys later. And he walked out, and I go, A word? And she goes, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So at least we're we got a little sense of humor about it now.
Are you watching Daddy dance?
Monica Holloway is a critically acclaimed author, speaker, and activist. She is also an autism mom. Her son Wills was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3. Now, at the age of 15, Wills is a high school freshman, attending a mainstream school.
I'm in a brand new school. I'm in a great school that I love, and I'm really happy there. I made friends pretty quickly on the first day, and something interesting happened to me on the first day.
Tell me.
We were doing an art project with fabric markers, and there was a little label on it that said, "Squeeze for best results."
Okay.
And so I squeezed it and it exploded all over the people at my table.
Oh no!
And we were all covered in little blue dots.
I asked Wills how he describes autism to people.
I say that I have Asperger's syndrome, which is a slight form of autism. It doesn't make you any different. It really doesn't. It's just there, and it just kind of makes you who you are.
I asked Wills what he thought of the Sandy Hook shooter's actions being linked to autism.
Please, just don't be scared of autism. If somebody has autism, don't be scared of them. Chances are they're not violent. They're just like you or me.
Monica is a proud mom with good cause. I asked her to describe Wills in 5 words.
Generous, curious, funny, sensitive, loving.
We had a chance to talk about the Sandy Hook massacre and how Monica heard the news.
On Friday, when the shooting happened in Connecticut, I was in my car, and my husband Michael called to tell me what had happened. And I was in a state of shock, as I think we all were, but that many children. And I felt, I guess a mind can't take in that kind of information without feeling nauseous. I felt it go from here all the way down my body. I started calling everybody I knew to tell them I loved them, and I was thinking about them, and I just wanted to be with the people that I knew. I started hearing more and more information come on the news about this shooter having Asperger's or being autistic. And then I started hearing things about, well, does autism cause violence? And I was in a whole other level of shock. Never in a million years would I think that somebody might associate us and my son's face with the face of violence just because he has Asperger's. And I've seen bad days and good days, and that's what kills me, is like there was not a day bad enough to ever make me think that he or any of his friends could ever be violent. The only thing that made me even feel a little bit better, to do something to help educate. And so we've started a campaign on my Facebook page, Cowboy and Wills. It's called I Am the Face of Autism. And please post a picture of yourself. It can be your child, your friend with autism. Let's put these beautiful faces of these people with autism on to wipe out the face of this murderer. Let's put our faces in front of his.
Welcome back to Autism Live. So excited because we have here in the studio with us 2 really wonderful guests, Dylan Aragon. Am I saying your last name correctly?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
I mean, I pronounce it Aragon.
Aragon. Okay, well, that's good to know. And his mom, Sharon Aragon, is with us as well. We're really excited to have you guys here. Something I didn't share with you is that in the new year, we're starting a new series. We're going to be featuring these kinds of interviews where it is a parent and the adult child of somebody who's on the spectrum, because more and more people have been asking us, we want to hear more from the adults. We want to hear what's gone on for them, what they're doing now, because that's so inspirational to so many people who have younger kids. So we're thrilled that you guys are here with us today.
Thank you for having us.
And Dylan, you're a very accomplished guy. Our desk is covered with accomplishments that you guys are seeing, trophies that are here. You've done a lot, but and you're in college right now, correct?
Yes, I am.
And you are a performer, and you're somebody who sings, you act, you've done a lot of things. We mentioned in the last hour that you are one of the actors that's featured in the CARD adult therapy sessions, that there are videos available. They're trainings to be able to train adults on the spectrum to gain new skills. You did that. Did you enjoy that process? Was it hard?
Looking back on it, I didn't, because I'm not really trying to be picky about it, but I didn't really like how Gail kind of, well, I mean, like, I should thank her, but, you know, like, I don't really like how the industry requires people on the spectrum to be incorporated in training videos for kids on the spectrum.
That's so interesting, because I was the person who fought really hard to make sure that in the training videos that it was individuals who are on the spectrum. So I love hearing your perspective, and you can enlighten me. My argument was that it would give those actors experience and that there was the potential for, you know, even a small amount of pay for them, which I thought was employment, and I'm all about that. And that I am frustrated sometimes when I watch television or something and there's an individual who's playing somebody who's on the spectrum and they don't do it accurately. That frustrates me. So I was of the mindset that we should find actors, but you don't think that it should be that way.
I just don't think it should be dependent on that. You know, I don't really want to rely on my learning disability for spectrum-related roles.
Right, because the truth of the matter is that you can play a wide variety of roles, and you have, correct?
I have.
Yeah. You don't need to just play somebody who's on the autism spectrum.
Yeah,
you can play somebody who isn't on the autism spectrum.
Yeah. You know, like I don't solely like to rely on my learning disability.
I think
or
that's
learning
admirable.
difference, I should say.
I want to say that when we did the Nokia performance, and Temple Grandin said something about don't market your autism, market your talent.
Yes.
So I think in theater, in the industry, it's important to embrace who you are and what, you know, if you like the boy on Breaking Bad, right? He was really with cerebral palsy, and he played a young man with cerebral palsy. I think it's intelligent to do it that way.
Right.
I think it's important for Dylan, I think, that he feel like he's marketing his talent, and people will know, ultimately they will know or not know, that he is a young man on the spectrum.
Right, because there's so many things about you. That's just one of the things about you. Absolutely. Well, I think that's a really, I appreciate you telling us that, because that helps me. I have a son who's 12 and a half on the spectrum, and as he gets older, I just continue to learn. And every once in a while he'll go, Mom, you're thinking of this wrong, you're looking at this wrong, and that, and he enlightens me. So I thank you for enlightening me. But I want to talk a little bit about how this all began for the two of you. And how autism became a word that was part of your everyday. And so how old were you when you were diagnosed, Dylan?
Well, when I was diagnosed, the earliest I can remember was when I was maybe like 2-3 years old.
Okay. And you have a pretty interesting story, Mom, about how you first thought maybe this is something. So tell our viewers at home what happened.
I think it's about divine intervention, because a stranger walked up to me in a McDonald's, and Dylan was sitting in the ball pit with a bunch of other kids who were engaging with each other and screaming and giggling and going down the tubes into the ball pit, and Dylan was alone, happy, always delighted, always smiling, but very alone, not really even parallel playing, which now I know what that is, but he was always content just to be by himself. I was just sitting there enjoying watching him be in the ball pit, and a stranger walked up to me and bombarded me with questions. You know, is that your son? How old is your son? What is his name? Has he had his inoculations? Who's his pediatrician? Have you ever been to UCLA? And then it was, does he have autism? Do you need some help? Have you heard of the regional center? And I was like, help, autism, regional center? What is all this and who are you? I don't know who she was. I don't know to this day.
Wow.
I just went home and started looking up autism.
Wow.
And who was this lady? She told me, B.J. Freeman at UCLA. And then we were on the other side of the double-paned window at UCLA a month later getting evaluation. And got that report. Dylan is diagnosed with autism. And that was the beginning of our journey.
And so that was many years ago.
He was not quite 3.
And autism was a little bit different then. It certainly, you know, I kind of look at that a couple of years ago, you couldn't find anything gluten-free anywhere, and now you can go anywhere and see gluten everywhere. I would imagine that when he was first diagnosed, that it was not all over the internet and all over the world. We still now have people, even with all the things that are out there now, they say, I feel alone and I don't know where to turn. It must have felt like that on steroids for you.
I hear that story all the time.
Yeah.
It's not our story at all.
No?
Not at all.
You got resources.
We were involved within 4 to 6 months after the diagnosis with a pre-K program that was from CSUN called Chimes. And I think we were the first class of Chimes. It was an early intervention program that incorporated. I hear that story though. I do hear that we didn't know what to do. We had We had 18 years ago. We had sensory integration. We had big troughs full of rice and sticky stuff to put your hands in because he wouldn't eat anything that tangibly offended his senses.
Right.
We learned about how to take off the earphones and how to dress, and we had behaviorists in our home. This is 18 years ago.
Wow.
So we were, like I say, that lady walked up to me. I didn't know her.
Right.
And she was a God gift.
Yeah.
And we still are ever so grateful for Chimes, and I think Chimes is still a program at CSUN. So we had behaviorists in our house. We had, I don't think they called it ABA, it was called behavior modification.
Right.
But we had that. We had people coming into our house from Yellen and Associates. I don't even know if they're around anymore.
Okay.
But yeah, we had every resource. We had one-on-one support. We had inclusion in our education plan 18 years ago.
You rocked it. You were one of those pioneers that rocked it early on.
I'm not a quitter. That's one thing I'm not is a quitter, but I always said, like, even when he was in with the speech pathologist and we had all these referrals, they told us, you need sign language. He's, this is 6 years later, he's not speaking. He's only echolalic.
Okay.
He doesn't speak. He's in diapers. Learn sign language. I said, I think not.
Okay.
I just always thought he would speak.
And so when did he start to speak? Do you remember, Dylan, how old you were when you started to speak?
I was maybe like 6 or 7 years old.
Okay, I just heard all the people who are watching go, because so often that will give so many people so much hope. So often people are told, well, if they're speaking at 3, then we can get to this or that or whatever. Or if we get told about these windows that close all the time. And I think that's bad for our community to talk about windows. It's like each individual has infinite possibilities and we just work towards that. So a bunch of people just got very excited at hearing that because obviously you're a beautiful speaker now. And that's a little late from what everybody gets told about, window, we really want the speech by force. So 6 years old and you began to speak. Do you have memories, Dylan, of before you were able to speak?
I do. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot.
Yeah.
The sole recollection of when I was echolalic was maybe around like 4 or 5 years old. And miraculously, well, actually, before I get to the miracle, my mom would always ask if I wanted milk or juice, to which I responded, milk or juice.
Okay.
And that's probably the only recollection I have of my speech impediment. Miraculously, there came a day when I came out of that echolalic phase of my learning difference. I sang the 3 little kittens I sang this. 3 little kittens lost their mittens and they began to cry. Oh, mommy dear, see here, our mittens we have found. And my mother's eyes glowed with light. And then she said, oh my God, do it again. And then I just went back into that echolalic phase. And then
said, do it again.
And then to which she kind of freaked out. And eventually we both started crying.
It was so hard because I heard it.
Yeah.
I heard him. He wasn't doing echolalic. He was doing nursery rhymes we had read.
Right.
And I said, do it again. And he said, do it again. And I said, no, do it again. I wanted to push the button on the phone so I could record it. So when his father came home, he could hear. And after 20 minutes of saying, do it again, no, do it again. And he was going, no, do it again, do it again. And then I was like screaming and crying, no, do it again, do it again. It got very, and he was crying and I was crying. And yeah, his dad said, yeah, sure. Yeah, sure, he did that. But, we have so many tools, right? We have the good books and we had the poster boards with the envelopes, and you do this and you get a good buck, and
Right.
you accomplish this and then you get more. So we had pictures all over the house. And one of the resource teachers in special ed had given Dylan a board, and his picture was in the center. And it was like fractions. Every time he said something that was reciprocal language, she would write it. And that was probably between kindergarten and first grade, summer school. And at the end of summer, that board was filled with appropriate language, reciprocal language. But it was late, you know. But it was never too late.
It came like when it comes. It's like
know,
it's
right?
who cares how when it came, right? It's thrilled to have it. But I'm sure that the anxiety before it came about was it ever going to come was huge. And I think that's, you know, what our audience can relate to, is that some of them are in that spot, but it's not too late. That things can come.
Is perception reality? You know, perception is reality. I always believed that he would speak.
Yeah.
I always believed that he would be the best. You know, we still have signs and affirmations. In a world where you can be anything, be your best self.
Yes.
And your best self is perfect.
Yes.
You know?
Now, are you an only child, or do you have siblings?
I thankfully am an only child.
Now, why do you say thankfully?
Well, because like growing up, I only wanted my mother's attention, and I can kind of see where the whole having siblings can be kind of competitive as to who has whose attention.
Interesting.
But
and you like what it is, that you're the only one.
well,
It's kinda cool.
I do kind of contemplate, like if I did have a brother or if I did have a sister, you know, I would help my mother raise that younger child or older child, you know. I mean, like if I had an older brother, you know, I would kind of look up to him.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you know, I think sometimes we find that from friends later on, and so I want to take a break, and then I want to come back and talk about all your accomplishments and all the things that you're into, how you got from a 6-year-old who's just starting to speak to this very accomplished young man who's a college student and doing amazing things. So we're going to take a short break, and part of what we'll talk about is friends, because I know that you have many friends. So we'll take a break, and we're going to come back more with this fascinating mother-son team. Stick with us. Mid-swing on this wonderful day, this wonderful walk with Mr. Matt Asner. Talk to us about today's walk. Do we have any facts, figures, numbers, or just pure emotion?
Just pure emotion. I'm about to get the numbers. We'll see what it is. Okay. I think it's probably close to 1.6, probably. That's my feeling. But it's incredible. We had 55,000 people plus here today. And you know, I you know, honestly, I've been here 7 years. It gets better and better and better. So.
And really what you fostered here today is hope. I know that's your favorite 4-letter word.
Where are we without hope?
Where are we?
Really, I mean, seriously, where are we without hope? Hope is everything. Hope is eternal.
This is a pretty big event. Every year I love it. What does this event mean to you?
Well, I just think it's great that you see so many people coming out to support, you know, autism.
So we're here with Max Burkholder. There's a whole community of people that are going to love you no matter what you do, no matter where you go, no matter what you do. And that's the autism community. Are you okay with this? Is this a good thing?
I'm pretty okay with it. This seems to be a pretty happy, supportive community.
Well, what did you learn about autism through portraying this wonderful character?
Sort of the individuality of it. You know, like with autism spectrum disorders, a tendency is to sort of generalize everybody with sort of the same degree of affliction as sort of exactly the same, and very, you know, very generalize them a lot. But something I found while just talking to everybody, and that I tried to put into the characters, just the sense of individuality that all of them have, everybody has. And so at a certain point it became not really even portraying autism, it just sort of became portraying the character.
I want to say thank you on behalf of everybody for what you do.
That's very sweet.
To bring awareness and to raise money. That's a tremendous, tremendous legacy. But as a dad, you've got other things that you're doing as well.
Yeah.
I want to know, as a family, if you have any advice, what's been something that's been helpful to you personally?
You know, get your autistic kids out in the community. I mean, my son's got a guide dog, so he goes to a lot of cool places. He surfs, he skis, does gymnastics. He's actually trying Hebrew school. I'm not quite sure if he knows what's happening there, but he does all kinds of cool things, and he has a lot of friends. Right now, most of his friends are the adults who take care of him, and over time, hopefully he'll have more friends who are his age, and you'll see him walking around, and people won't be nervous around him. The dog's been very helpful with that. It's like the dog is like the most infectious thing in the world. Like, everybody wants to be near the dog, and he sees that, and he gets some of that affection laid onto him. So as a family, you know, we're just there to support Tyler and make him happy.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The Skills assessment and curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes Skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The Skills assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the Skills assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mans, tax, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Welcome back to Autism Live, and let's talk autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm here today with 2 wonderful guests, Sharon and Dylan Aragon. Am I saying it correct? Did I get it right that time? Yeah. I'm learning. And so before the break, we were talking with this wonderful mom and son team, I think of you guys as a team, about some of the things that you guys went through early on when Dylan got a diagnosis of autism when he was a young child. And you surprised me with talking about the fact that you, even though this was many years ago, you got a bunch of help, you got a bunch of support and a bunch of resources. And Dylan was someone who jury was out in terms of the experts, wasn't out for you. You knew that he was going to speak, and he, at the age of 6, spoke, and now it's like that's old hat because he's quite a performer, a singer, a performer. You sang at Temple Grandin and Friends.
Yes, I did.
Amazing event, and I'm bummed because I was backstage interviewing people when you sang, but I heard it was amazing. So was that a pretty fun night for you?
It was a fun night for me, and you know, I'm actually used to the whole performing dynamic. I'm just used to it, whether there's like hundreds of people there or very little people there. You know, I do get a little bit of adrenaline, like just before I perform. I do get a little bit of stage fright, and then it just goes away.
Isn't that interesting? I think a lot of performers that's the same sort of thing. Once you're on stage and in the moment, that the fears go to the side. But we've got a lot of things that are here on the desk, and I want to talk about because it's some of the different things that you're interested in and involved in. Because while performing is a big part of what you love to do, I understand because you were telling me earlier that this has a lot to do with you and what you're interested in. So tell us about this trophy and what you like to do in your spare time.
Well, this trophy signifies, you know, as you can see by the fourth, it's 4th place in the men's purple belt kata in Z Ultimate Self-Defense Studios, which is a part of the Kenpo Lineage Association. You see, when I was 13, I was a yellow belt in Taekwondo. That was almost 10 years ago in Simi Valley, which unfortunately got bought out by a shoe company. So, and when I was 16, I lived in Northridge and joined the House of Champions, which is a Muay Thai class. And, you know, like I just got really involved in that with another job coach of mine named Gabriel Lopez. And that didn't really go for as long as I had expected, but at 19, maybe like around 18, 19 years old, I found out about Z Ultimate Self-Defense Studios through a bike ride in Redondo Beach, right? And I got a free trial, joined up for 30 days, and I'm like, you know what? I want to do this. I want to get back into martial arts. And what inspired me to go back into martial arts was, you might know him. Well, what inspired me to go back into martial arts was this actor who is a black belt in White Tiger martial arts. His name is Ryan Potter, who you might know is a Brothers Big Sisters of America. He was a voice actor in Disney's Big Hero 6. You know, he's a really big inspiration for me to go back into martial arts, but not just that. He's also an inspiration for me to be a mentor to kids who are on the spectrum as well.
How wonderful. Have you had an opportunity to meet this actor?
I have. Unfortunately, I did not really make a good first impression on him, but I mean, like, understandable, you don't really get a second chance to make a first impression, but my motto is you'll always get another chance to make a good impression.
Yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes when I meet somebody that I, you know, adore and that I've seen on television or whatever, someday I want to meet Oprah, and I know I'm afraid of it because I'm afraid I'll make a fool of myself. Like, I won't be able to talk, and I'm probably going to cry, and I'll be lucky if that's all I do. So I think sometimes stars, big stars, understand that when somebody is not, that they're not completely themselves when they get to meet them. So I would be willing to bet that he'd give you a second chance.
Yeah, he's my inspiration to follow my martial arts career, and I'm really devoted to it. I love my martial art and believe in my martial arts so much I'm ever devoted to it, to the point where now I'm studying the history of it. I'm studying the roots of martial arts. I'm also working on getting more confident with other students and trusting myself.
And for parents who are thinking about doing martial arts with their kids, what kinds of things has it helped you with, Dylan?
Well, it's helped me. It definitely helps me it definitely helps me confidence-wise. And it's also another it's also another method for me to be healthy, like physically healthy. And one of the most salient points that I cannot stress enough is that martial arts for me is an essential life skill. I need to know how to defend myself in a dangerous situation, God forbid.
And so that brings up other things for me. I think we all need a certain amount of knowledge of self-defense. But do you feel like that you need that a little bit more? Have you had bullying happen to you that you feel like maybe you need that a little more?
I have been bullied, and I have been subjugated before. So, yeah, I've been bullied and I've been subjugated, but I've never been, my safety has never been compromised, and that's why I take this class.
So this has helped you with that. It's helped you in circumstances where you've been bullied to stay safe and be confident. Because I think a lot of what happens when a bully is bullying is that it tears people's confidence down. So would it be safe to say that this has helped you with that?
Well, in a way, yes. But again, I take this class not solely to stand up to bullies, because bullies will be bullies.
Yeah.
I take this class because I want to protect myself against aggressors.
Got it.
I don't take this to stand up to bullies,
But this is good for you. So this is something that you love, and what I'm hearing is that you're saying that for you as a person, this is fulfilling.
It definitely is. I love my martial arts so much that I'm studying the history of it, but now I actually want to work for the Ultimate Self-Defense Studios and the Kenpo Lineage Association. I want to work for them now.
I love that goal.
I want to interject something here, because you were talking about bullying, and I remember when Dylan was young, like first grade, second grade, and we lived in Ventura County, and we lived in a very suburban area, and the yellow bus would come and pull up to the front yard, and we had a relatively long driveway, and we had bullies in our neighborhood who laughed at Dylan because he was getting on the short bus, and they would torment him, and they would ride their bikes, and they would scare him, and he would cower, and he would lay down, and he wasn't in a place where he could defend himself. And I'm not a trained advocate. I'm just a mom, and I would knock on the neighbor's door and say, can you speak to your boys? That's why I love some of these school programs that are teaching inclusion early on. But I knocked on the neighbor's door, and she said, can I help you? She was kind of icy. And I said, I just want you to speak to your boys because they're bothering my son. And it's no secret, my son has some special circumstances. It's obvious. The yellow bus is pulling up. And talk to your boys. Please ask them not to scare him on the bike because he's frightened.
Right.
And she responded to me by saying, if I wanted special treatment, then my family and I should go live on a farm. And so we had that bullying experience, and I'm not that girl who says, okay, bye.
Good, because I'm not either.
So I said,
I want her address now.
Right. So we ended up, it was short and sweet, one more time and we'll see you in court, and I'll own that house that you live in, which would be nice to have a rental in the same area that I live. So we ended up in court, and we got the judge addressed her and her husband and the kids, and they referred to the American Disabilities Act and said, if we see you in my courtroom again, it's a federal situation, and it will escalate. I don't want to see you here again, and yes, your restraining order is granted. Do not come within 100 feet of Dylan Aragon. And it was a lesson for those kids that bullying is tolerated. We're not tolerating that. In martial arts, Dylan's not learning to be aggressive. He's learning how to de-escalate.
Right.
You know, so I think it is a great tool for him.
It's a wonderful thing. And we really want to encourage families that, you know, this is one of the many things that you can do with your kids that's really positive and good for them. But you have lots of accolades that are here on the table, and I don't even know where to start with them. Let's talk about something. Mom, hold up the big frame.
Okay, let's
start with the big
let's
one.
start most current.
Well,
This is Dylan's award from Pierce College, right? And what is this award for?
Well, it's an award for the creative force. You know, when I was taking Theater 230 in the spring of 2015, the professor who was teaching Theater 230 was a producer. I just forgot which show it was for them. But anyways, when I performed a short skit of Abbott and Costello's Who's on First.
One of my favorites.
Everyone in the classroom was laughing.
So this award is signed by the chair of the department from the theater
wonderful.
department at Pierce, and he was recognized as the most creative force award actor, and it's a great
huge honor.
accomplishment. Yeah.
A huge honor.
Yes.
Wonderful. And again, you are at college. I mean, this is one of the things that we had mentioned before. What year are you in at college right now?
Yes.
Are you a
What year?
junior? Are you a sophomore?
I'm a junior, and I am kind of struggling in my classes right now, but I'm actually really loving United States history.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so, do you have plans yet for what you want to do when you're done?
Well, my ultimate goal is to be a film and voiceover actor.
Got it. We have much to talk about. And my husband does voiceovers, so we'll have to talk about that later. I'm sure that you know Alex Plank. You must have met Alex.
Yeah, Alex and I are actually very good friends.
Wonderful, because Alex is a filmmaker as well, amongst his many things that and an actor as well. And speaking of being an actor, there is a program here for something called Hard Candy Christmas, and this is something that you take part in and have been taking part in for a while, correct?
Yes, a little over 3 years, and I am an alumni for the Charles Stewart Howard Playhouse. One of the producers there who absolutely loves and adores me.
As everyone would who met you, of course.
Yeah.
What a wonderful thing. So are you doing this again this year, Hard Candy Christmas?
Yes, I am.
And so the performances are coming up in December?
Yes, I do not know the ticket pricing. I only know that the final production date is December 13th.
Okay, so but there are probably performances before that. That's the final one. So people should Google Hard Candy Christmas. It's the Charles Stewart Howard Playhouse in Woodland Hills. Google that if you want to see Dylan performing live in December. But Mom, you've got some more stuff over there. Talk to us about what's the certificate, the
Well, this is now Dylan is a blue-green belt.
Well,
He's
an advanced rank blue-green belt.
Okay, so I'm hopelessly unaware when it comes to belts, but I know that that's pretty impressive.
What is
this
that,
is for
Dylan?
being a yellow belt, but you're blue-green now? What does blue-green mean?
Well, blue-green is kind of like a half step between blue and green belt.
Where are we trying to get to? What's the ultimate? Is that the black belt, or is
Well, the ultimate belt is, I mean, like, I don't recall if it's 2nd degree or 3rd degree, but that is the ultimate goal for me as a martial artist, is to be well, not just a junior instructor, but an instructor in martial arts.
Okay.
Period.
Wonderful. And what is this last one here?
Well, this is kind of a funny story because Dylan he was always on diploma track in school. And I know there's different paths you can take to get out of high school and stay on campus till you're 22. But Dylan took the Casey exams to exit, and the scores weren't timely. For some reason, they didn't come back timely. And so he had to take the Casey's again because we didn't know if he first passed the first go
I
round.
see.
So he took them twice and passed them twice. And he got an award from Birmingham Charter High School for excellence in oratory, English and oratory, which is like amazing because he was the guy who wasn't going to speak, right?
Right.
And
Quite
then
the
they were
turnaround.
going to close that charter school down. There was some scrutiny, and the Beaudry Street district level asked Dylan to come and speak and save the school because it was a conflict, something to do with special education. I'm always on the circumference, but anyway, he was
Right.
invited and he spoke at the district level and was well received, and Birmingham kept their charter. Yay.
Truly amazing that an opportunity to speak. We've got a bunch of different questions. People have been writing in, and I haven't been paying attention. For the young actor, how does knowing you have autism help you? Did it matter to know the diagnosis? And what's your advice on whether parents should tell their child? Do you think that it has helped you? And do you think that people should tell their
Good
children that they
question.
have autism?
Well, I definitely think that parents should reveal the diagnosis. I definitely think that. And I really think that it should be a heartfelt conversation with your child. But if you're asking me, like, if autism is a hindrance or not, I don't suppose it is. And my perception of it is, I don't suppose I have autism. Sometimes I am, like most people, forgetful and negligent. So to sum it all up, I don't suppose I'm autistic. I'm just forgetful.
You're Dylan.
You're
Yeah,
Dylan.
you know?
You're Dylan.
Right.
And that comes with all the things that come with Dylan, just like I'm Shannon, and that comes with all the, and I'm just going to guess that I'm more forgetful than you are. So it's an interesting thing. Somebody else wants to know, how does the dynamic duo, that's what they're referring to you, how do you guys define autism? And do they need to disclose to professors, classmates, etc.? So first of all, how do you guys define autism?
Can I answer that just really quickly about the curriculum thing, Dylan?
Go ahead.
Okay, so we know a lot about different programs because we've been with Tierra del Sol and Nexus and the transition from high school. We had a fabulous transition coordinator, and Dylan was in a program that helped him get onto the college campus with the right support.
Right.
He graduated out of Tierra del Sol with an amazing accomplishment, and now still on campus with support from Passport to Learning, he has the support that's needed for him. He doesn't have a day program, so to speak. It's
Right.
not a requirement for him to be there from 7:30 to 1:30. It's geared towards Dylan's needs, and he doesn't need what he used to need.
Right, right.
And thank you for the dynamic duo. But yes, I think you need to disclose. I think there are certain situations, social situations, not so much. Interviews, I think if you're going on a job interview, I think not. What do you think? You do or do not disclose?
I think you should disclose, and referring back to the previous question, autism has actually made me that much more critical of a thinker, and at least a little bit more intellectual and perceptive of reality, you know, and just a little bit more perceptive of current events.
So when do you not disclose? Do you disclose in social situations?
I would say you should disclose maybe to your teachers. I mean, if the parent has disclosed the diagnosis to the child, I think that parents should, like, especially with the child, but it's optional. I think that parents should also disclose that kind of information to the professor or the teacher, regardless of whether the child wants them to know or not. I also think that it could help in social situations. For example, if you have friends, much like I do, I would kind of disclose that information as well, you know?
So let's talk a little bit about friends. Although I do want to say that Mike Hipple writes in and says, we don't like bullies, go Dylan. And somebody else wants you to show karate moves, but our studio is not big enough for that. So I'm going to say no to that. We have a glass table.
Well, and my studio doesn't really want me to. It's against studio protocol.
Yeah.
Studio
There's
protocol.
just not enough room.
No.
And not appropriate in this setting. But you mentioned friends, and we said that we were going to talk about friends, and I see that you have a bunch of friends, because I've seen pictures of you in all these places with all of these people. I'm sure that this is an annoying question, but I'm going to ask it anyway as a parent. What's the percentage, and does it matter to you? Do you have a bunch of friends that are on the spectrum? Do you just like not think of it that way, but do you have friends that aren't on the spectrum?
Well, I do have friends that are on the spectrum, and I have friends that are not on the spectrum, but accept my learning difference as it is.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a wonderful thing. And so you have disclosed to all of your friends, and they all know.
Well, I wouldn't say all of them, but to the people that I have, they are accepting.
Okay. All right. I think that that's wonderful. We're getting down towards the end of the show. So any last thoughts from either one of you? Because then I need a minute or two to close out of the show. We've taken the whole hour for this, which is more than we normally spend, but this is
You know what
I
I want to say about the friends thing, because Dylan has new friends on campus that are not on the spectrum. So I don't know if it's cliche to say neurotypical, but Dylan has gravitated to a group of kids who are very high achieving, neurotypical young adults that are not on the spectrum, that come to our home and follow us down to tournaments down in Irvine if Dylan's competing and they're driving, and Dylan does not drive yet. But he has people coming to our house, and we love to host, and we love to get music people together who are on the spectrum and not on the spectrum. And we have a big clubhouse at our place, and we're going to be hosting another event there.
And are these all kind of performer types?
Well, yes.
Or some
yes,
not.
yes.
Because I'm a theater person. I used to teach theater, and so I think they're nice people.
We call them BYOV instead of BYOB. We don't bring your own booze. We bring your own voice. BYOV. And we are very close with Rio Solshaka and Spencer and Nikki Gutman. And we have a lot of friends who are on the spectrum who rock it, who and love to perform. And we have friends who aren't, and we just meld it together. We're peanut butter and jelly.
Wonderful. So any last thoughts from you, Dylan?
No. I think that answers just...
Well, I think that you're a remarkable young man, and I know that you've given a lot of people a lot of inspiration today, both of you.
Thank you for having us.
We thank you for having. I'm going to ask you guys to stay where you are, because we're just going to be finishing out the show here, if you don't mind. As 2 minutes, Kelby's telling me. I just want to tell everybody, programming notes, that on Tuesday we're going to be showing this month's edition of The Future is Bright, which is the hour that we do with the Autism Society of America. They have Stephanie Schaefer has a wonderful guest that's going to be joining her on Tuesday, who Barbara is the impetus for Circle of Friends, which many of you have written that your children are partaking of in school. So they will be here talking about that on Tuesday. And then the second hour on Tuesday, we have Bryce Myler, an expert in the field of autism insurance. She's going to be here answering your questions about open enrollment. You can write in specific questions about the different states that you're in. If you have something that you just can't figure out, Bryce is the expert. We're going to devote a whole hour to that on Tuesday. So that's what's going to be happening on Tuesday. Tuesday is the only show that we are doing next week. But after that, when we come back on December 2nd, we're into the holiday mode, and we're starting our Festival of Toys. Each day we're going to be featuring a toy of the day. And I say toy, but it's all kinds of things, apps and technology that we're going to be featuring and talking with the makers of those toys, but helping you to understand what's particularly great about that toy for individuals that may need to learn a different skill and how you can utilize that toy. So we're completely out of time. We want to thank our guests today and thank Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh earlier. Please keep your prayers coming for Reed Jackson and for Nancy and for her family. And Wyatt, we're out of time, but we will see you next Tuesday. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you as well. Bye-bye for now.